take one of an interview with Michal Tauwinkel. We're in Chicago, Illinois, or Harwood Heights, Illinois, right?
Yeah.
And the date is the 28th of February 2012.
That's right.
Okay, so first question. I'll just go through kind of a number of questions we normally ask, and then we can get into your life more specifically.
Okay.
First up, what is your name as it appears on your birth certificate?
You mean Czech pronunciation? Michal Tauwinkel.
Okay, no middle names, nothing?
No middle names.
Okay, and whereabouts?
Brno.
Oh, okay.
Czech, used to be Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell me who your parents are and the sort of jobs that they did?
My mom, her name is Vlasta. She's still alive. She's 87. She will be in March 87. Although, she was working in the office, like accountant. My dad was a teacher, and he died about 4 years ago. He was 85. And yeah, he was teacher. My mom worked in the office. So
kind of a like white collar professional.
White collar people, which was not great thing in Czechoslovakia because they promote more like working class, and so.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I got sister. She is 3 years older than me. She's in Czech, and I talked to her a lot over the Skype, about my mom and stuff like that. And she's totally different than me. We have very different personalities. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll ask more about that, I hope, a bit later. Maybe you could tell me what your dad taught and where he taught.
Oh, he was teaching at a school. It was vocational school for masonry, people doing masonry, and he was teaching physical education and geography. So, he was a lot in sports. So he was very athletic, and so he loved riding bike and running, skiing, which I like too. But I wish I have more time for that.
And which part of Brno did you grow up in?
It's a neighborhood called Královo Pole, which is close to, there is a veterinarian school. It's pretty nice neighborhood, really nice, and we had big garden, so we had all these, fruit trees, apricots and apples and everything, strawberries from the garden. So when I was growing up, it was pretty cool to have a garden, and back at that time there was no traffic, very little cars, so I was first or second grader, and I came home, and then I went going to the park, and it's difficult to imagine today with so many cars on the streets, and it was different time.
And what was Brno more generally like when you were growing up? It had been this really multicultural city before the war.
No, not at all. See, because we lived in communist country, there was no multicultural. It was very monolithic society, very Czech or more. Actually, we are Moravians, but there was, and basically we had no contact with outside world because there was even a law: if you were approached by a foreigner, you have to report it to police. What you were talking about and stuff like that, and you met people from West very, very rarely. Maybe some Germans, Austrians, Italians. That was about it.
Okay.
So,
can you tell me about the school you went to, like the names of the schools?
Yeah, it was základní škola na Staňkové. It was from the 1st to 9th grade, and I actually got a really great memories for that school, especially from the 5th to 9th grade, because our teacher she was fresh from the school, from the college. And we were like 10 years old, and she was 25, or maybe 24, and she was beautiful. So we had all boys. We had crush on her. The funny story is, when we finished school, it was 1968. She immigrated to Canada, and with her husband, and I actually met her about 10 years ago in Vancouver. So it was pretty cool to meet her, and. Kind of these old memories about school, and so.
Okay, when you were at school, was there something in particular you wanted to be? Did you have a favorite subject?
I love geography, about foreign countries, history. History is until today my really I just love the YouTube is great. I just today I was watching on YouTube some because there's I think 30 years anniversary of Falkland War, so I was watching on YouTube what actually happened, and so I love history. That was my favorite. Math not so much, and I absolutely hated Russian language, and I kind of block it out of my mind. And although I had Russian for 6, 4, 10, 11 years, I didn't learn anything. I managed to just block it.
So, what was your teaching of history like at school? I mean, now with hindsight, like, do you feel like you were taught very well, or do you think there were gaps in your teaching?
I think not the recent history, but history like medieval history, or yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good, and but always everything was taught from the point of view that the communist country is the greatest and always right, and everything else. So it was, if I am looking now, it was very limited information. So I'm still learning a lot of stuff now today, So, and geography, it was, only thing we can do, we couldn't travel. So that was, and my parents, they had a huge library, and they had magazines from 30s, like travel magazines, and I was reading about Asia and other countries, and it was just unbelievable, and if somebody tell me back then that I will see some of this stuff, and I would not probably believe that, but yeah, if you step back and, there were so many dreams I actually kind of realized, so yeah.
Okay, so after Zakladní škola, which school did
I
you
went
go
to gymnasium. They call it the gymnasium, which is 4-year school. They don't have anything like this, which is prep school for college. In Europe, it's a different system. You got this prep school for college, or you go to vocational school. And so I was 4 years in gymnasium, and I had English there, and I learned some. But again, we didn't have any access to material to read or listen. The only newspaper we had was Morning Star, which was English Communist Party newspaper. So yeah, but I was listening Radio Freedom. What was the Free Voice of
or Voice of America?
Voice of America. It was in Czech, but some of this was in English. But my English was really bad, back then. And I loved the rock and roll, And since I was 15, I heard the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper Heart Club Band, and it just changed me forever, And the English sounded so exotic, so beautiful, I didn't understand the word, but music was awesome. I was listening Mrs. Robinson with Simon and Garfunkel. It was a beautiful song, but now I know the lyrics, so it's cool. So yeah, I was in this school for years, and after that, I wasn't admitted to college because my parents were white collar, and which is shocking. It's kind of like affirmative action here in the United States, which just shocks me. It exists here, and. So I worked a year on construction site, and as a laborer, and it was in the winter. It was so cold, and then I decided I will never work outside. I have to work inside. So yeah, I try again for college, for civil engineering college. I was admitted, and then I went for 5 years. I finished college in Brno, in same city. It's called Institute, in Czech it is VUT, Vysoké učení technické Brno. It was great actually, it's 5 years, it was pretty cool. But, I got married in the first year, and I have a son. I was like 21 years old. But it was nothing unusual back in Czech, because people get married really soon, and there was nothing to look forward. You cannot travel, you cannot do anything, and so there was no reason to wait. you know. So I had a son, then I had a daughter 3 years later. But I finished this college 5 years later, and I started working. Yeah.
Okay, so just going back to your
Okay.
childhood though, before we go on to all of this stuff. So outside of school, what sorts of hobbies did you have? Were you sort of involved in any groups in particular?
We actually with my dad, we did like trips, you know, the walking with group of people. They like hiking trips, and I got really great memories on it. I did other photography was my hobby a little bit, but it was very expensive to buy film cameras, everything. So I actually didn't do anything. You know, I just love to buy magazines and look at them. And but then the sport, that was my really hobby, skiing. Later on, I did some windsurfing. You know, I built by myself the whole the surf, the board, and so we were doing some windsurfing on the lakes. And other than that, you know, the sport was big escape for people. Camping, going out, going to the forest. So because everybody was leaving cities and going to, they call it chalupa, going to the villages or and escape from the city. I was never the bar or the hospoda person, you know. I'm not crazy about the big crowds. So, and reading, I love reading books. And as I said, my parents, they had a really big library, so I discovered like Shakespeare, and I read almost everything from him, and yeah, and movies. Yeah, that was my hobby. And girls, yes.
So growing up, did your parents ever talk to you about politics? And what did they say?
They never talk about it because, but I knew where they stand, and it's kind of risky business. You know, it was a risky business to actively teach your children about to do something against the government, because how it works was, if you were vocal, everything was provided by government, not provided, but you have to wait, for example, for apartment 10 years. If you were a troublemaker, you never got it. Everything was based on this, like, okay, you will be quiet and government will, you know, give you something. So I was discouraged from doing anything actively. And I was 15 years when in 1968 the Russians invaded Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia. So I saw it firsthand. And after that, you know, it was crushed. Any opposition was just absolutely crushed. And back then I was in this prep school for college. And you could feel the pressure everywhere. You know, we were forced to join a organization of like youth organization, CSM, stuff like that. So honestly, I was just quiet and kept my feeling for myself. And then I got married, and it got even more complicated because you don't want to screw up, you know, life of your children. So everybody was pretty much trapped, you know.
So the Prague Spring of 1968, you know, people refer to it now and say it was this big time of liberalization and reform. Is that what it felt like to live in it in, you know, that year? Or did you not, as a 15-year-old, notice it?
It was amazing. I was, suddenly you can read, there were new magazines every month coming out, you know, new information. People were talking on radio and on TV about the, you know, what happened in the 50s in Czech Republic when they executed, you know, any opposition, and the trials, the show trials. And so I was 15 years old, but it had great impression on me. And I just hated communists, you know. And then Russians came in August. And it took like 2 years to break everybody, you know. And suddenly, and that's my disappointment with Czech nation, that we gave up way too easily, I think. I'm not saying we should fight, you know, because we didn't have a chance, but you know, what happened? People renounced their opinion, you know, really quickly, and in 2 years it was like. And I think it was much worse actually in the 70s maybe than in 50s, although there were no executions anything like that. But it was like really dark ages, you know, the culturally and morally and yeah, I think the 70s were really bad times, and that was back when we saw the movie about Miloš Forman. He was talking about it, and it was like there's no hope. It will be there forever, you know, communism. So, but 1968, it was amazing. Yeah, it was so refreshing, everything. And
So do you remember the new things you were reading? You said things about certainly the
Mm-hmm.
sort of trials in the 1950s. Do you remember anything else you read for the first time in 1968?
well, the whole history about Second World War and how the communisms in 30s and 20s in Europe, and how everything was, how bloody history of communism is. And shockingly, there were similarities between Nazis and the communists, you know, which are basically same principle. So yeah, it was like, and it was so humiliating. Kind of listen to the lies and then say, yeah, it's, you know, kind of nod that yes, it is true. You know, it was hard to swallow it. And you know what? There were a lot of people in Czech. They didn't care. They really didn't care, and they just, you know, they were okay with having a couple beers a day, and that's all they needed. But I always wanted to travel. You know, I said, you know, if you let people go out and travel, they might go back. I don't know. They might, maybe not. Who knows? But you know, our borders were surrounded by barbed wire, and you know, with dogs and the soldiers then, and they shoot people. You know, it happened. So it was impossible to escape from the communist countries.
Now, did you ever travel as a kid? Did you ever leave Czechoslovakia
I
on
did.
holiday? Where
I
you go?
did. Yeah, we had what's the name? Relatives in Vienna, in Austria. My father actually was born in Vienna, and he came to Czech when he was like 4 years old. And my grandmom from my father's side was actually active Nazi supporter, you know. So she was lucky they didn't kick her out from Czechoslovakia in 1945, because she was single and she had 2 kids, so they let her. And so we went 1962. We went to Vienna, and I was 9 years old. And when you cross the border, you know that everything in Czech was kind of drab, you know, gray and brown. And we went to Austria and it was like different world. You know, the gas stations with these color flags and the colors everywhere, and new cars. And I think that left, you know, a huge impression on me that I want to live here, you know, and the Coca-Cola and the fries. And I mean, it was like eating fries. It was like, wow, it was amazing. Yeah. So, yeah, that definitely had big impression on me. And it was just once. And the funny thing was, we got really little pocket money, and so we were traveling in Austria by hitchhiking on the highway, and it was pretty cool. My dad, he talked fluently German, you know, because he was born there. So yeah, we had some people let us sleep in their houses, and you know, so it was great. It was so special. So yeah, I was 9 years old. Then second times we went to Yugoslavia, and when I was like 15, which was kind of semi-Western country, but it was really different, much better than Czechoslovakia. And we went to the sea, and yeah, that definitely. But again, the Czech government control everything. You know, they didn't let the whole family go. They let only, let's say, mom with kid and other kids with dad has to stay at home like hostages. That's how they did it. And so I went with my dad, and we stayed as a guest of they call it izvedači, which are like Boy Scouts, the Yugoslavian Boy Scouts. Although funny thing, my coworker, my colleague at work, he's Croatian, and you cannot say Yugoslavia in front of him because he hates Serbs. So, but anyway, yeah, these couple trips left a really big impression on me, and but then I'm saying after college I got married. I had 2 kids, and I just that was impossible to leave. Impossible because they will not let you with the whole family, and it takes a lot of guts, to just leave everything behind you and go. It's easier if you do it if you are 18 years old or 20 years single, but do it with the whole family. It was in 1968. A lot of they say about 100,000 people, maybe 300,000 people left. I think that was a big opportunity, but I was 15, so yeah.
So a couple of questions. First of all, can you tell me a bit more about your dad's family? It sounds very interesting. So he was Austrian, or he was like a Czech born in Vienna? Like, what was
he was? I'm not actually clear about it. His father was definitely Czech. His wife, my grandma, I think she was Austrian, because she spoke really broken Czech, and everybody was laughing at her, and that was the reason why I didn't want to stay in Europe when we left country, because in Europe you are always second class citizen if you are foreigner. They will never kind of accept you. So we were thinking Canada, Australia, or US. So good choice, US. So yeah, and they were divorced, which was highly unusual back in like 40s or 50s. No, 40s actually, because my dad was born in 1925. So before war, they were, because he was heavy drinker and it was not working. So so my memory to see my grandpa was once a year on the Christmas we went to visit him with my dad. Because he basically didn't have any contact with him, although he left like 500 yards from us. So, but we didn't have any contact with him, only on Christmas.
And what about your granny? You did see her?
Yeah, she was living in the same house, speaking very broken Czech, and yeah, she was telling stories about 1945. The Germans were actually, they were told you got 2 hours to leave. Get a backpack and go. The whole families were just deported from the Czech. If they deserve it or not, it's a different story. But she was telling me that the Czechs were actually killing little babies, and I never believed her. And she actually had it was true. There are new documents now about mass executions of Germans after war, which kind of bothers me, because then we cannot complain we are better than them, So yeah, that's.
So how was she able to stay? Because I mean, it does sound like there were all these very horrible things that happened at the end of the war. What was the case with your granny that allowed her to survive and stay in Brno?
Well, honestly, I didn't like her too much. Because she was a very hard person. I don't know. She never shown any emotions, anything like that. But it seems to me that the people back then were like this, the older generation, and they're not like these helicopter parents today. So yes, I don't know. I don't have too many memories on her. Or I do, but I was never close to her. Never close to her. And I didn't have any desire to learn more, to be honest, because of her personality. So.
Okay, well, it's interesting though.
Yeah.
All right. So growing up, were you a young pioneer?
Of course I was.
Can you tell me about that?
It was mandatory from first grade. We had these white shirts and red scarves. And one of the advantage was, well, I don't see any advantage, but I remember in first grade, you just couldn't buy apples or oranges or anything like that. You know, it was so at the Christmas time, every pioneer got a bag of oranges, and it was I remember it was in the classroom, and every kid there had like a bag of these goodies, and we got oranges and bananas, and yeah, I remember that. The only advantage was the kids were together. You know, there was no politics in it. We were just boys and playing together, and but there was no heavy. I don't heavy indoctrination back then. It started more later, but then, as I said, I was never in. They call it SSM. I was more with my father, with this group of hikers, and we were camping. We went to high Tatras, and that was awesome.
And this was like Turistica. It wasn't.
Yeah,
like
Turistica.
Camping. It wasn't. Okay.
Yeah, it was Turistica, and I was in first grade, and we went to high Tatras, which are like miniature Colorado, and we spent a month, sleeping in a tent and going in the mountains, and we kids smoke in the forest, the cigarettes, like in first grade. It will taste awful. But then we got big, the fire and the bonfire. So yeah, it was great.
Okay, so
And the pioneers actually they organized these camps. Like you went for 4 weeks to the camp, but I was only once, because I was more with my parents with the group, and I remember I talk maybe in the 7th grade, 8th grade. I listened my the boys from the class. How. The boys meet girls, and I was like so jealous I didn't go. So, yeah, that was all. But as I'm saying, I went only once, because I was more with my parents and the group.
What about První Maj? Did you ever take part in any of these?
Oh, absolutely. Every year you have to put the Russian and Czech flag in the window, and they actually you make sure you put it there, because there were people watching windows and saying, "Oh, so and so doesn't put the flag there," and you can get not in serious trouble. But if you do it, often you will get in trouble. You like, and the whole school went to the first May Day parade, and. But we kids, we saw it like having fun, We didn't care about anything, the politics of it. There was another opportunity to have a fun with, And it lasted till like ninth grade, yeah. I remember at the gymnasium, which is basically 10 to 13th grade, we hated to go. We had better plans, but I think we had to go anyway, so. And the funny thing, nobody ever told us that the May Day actually started in Chicago. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. There was a huge demonstration here in Chicago, 18-something, and there was the big crowd, and there was some shooting, and the workers' parade started here in Chicago. So
you've come full circle.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more questions still about your early days. Well, one thing, do you remember your first memory by any chance? Do you remember one thing that clearly,
Mm-hmm. My very first memory. Wow. What it could be. I don't know. I definitely remember the girl from the first grade. Her name was Renata, but anything earlier, not really.
Okay, well, we're not able to. All right, so next up, I suppose, can you tell me where you were on August 21st, 1968?
I was at home sleeping, and my Nazi grandma came upstairs, and she said in her German Czech, Russians are here. And we are like, I was like, what are you talking about, you know? And we turned on TV, and sure enough, they were showing from Prague tanks, and early in the morning, the Russian airplanes were landing, you know, like these American Galaxies, they have these big transportation airplanes, and they were landing in the Prague. And we were listening radio, what's going on. We stay at home, and my mom just, you know, begged me, don't go anywhere, because it was dangerous back then. So I stayed home. We watched the TV all day long, and so it was the couple first days like this. Then Russians, they occupied Czech rozhlas and TV, and so they were broadcasting for a couple days from different place, and then it stopped, you know. And the school started right after that. I remember I was in ninth grade, and I remember we had a teacher of Russian language, and he was actually a really nice guy, you know. He was kind of harmless, but we decided to ignore him, and he was in the front part of classroom, and we sit in the back and put some music on and just to completely ignore him. And our teacher, you know, the one, she immigrated to Canada, she, you know, stand in front of the class, and she said, you know, this is the crime, what happened, you know, they invaded us, and it shouldn't stand. And, but you know what, we knew, kind of in the heart, we knew there's nothing, nobody will fight a war for us, and I kind of understand it, you know, so. And then it started, you know, kind of, they call it normalization, which was, you know, everybody was denouncing that. They say, oh, we were mistaken, and we got, you know, there was propaganda, we believed that, which they were lies, you know, and now we see the right way, and so it went pretty, like in 2 years, it was bad.
So a couple of questions. First of all, who was teaching you English at this time? It wasn't like nowadays some visiting American, was it?
No, it was Czech teacher. It was her. I kind of forgot her name. I had it in the prep school. I had 4 years of English language, and we had pretty good books actually. And the funny thing, one of these, or maybe two of these books, I had in when we immigrated in Austria, and I used them to learn like 2,000 or 4,000 words, you know. So they were pretty handy, these books. But again, there was no opportunity to listen or travel and go anywhere and practice language. So yeah, it was Czech teacher. Same with we didn't have any you know, native speakers whatsoever.
Okay, so I suppose, first of all, did you apply to university to go and do this, like, urban, what did you say it was?
Civil engineering. Civil engineering, yeah. I wasn't sure what I want to do. I kind of play with the idea, like, to be a lawyer, which I don't know why, kind of it was attractive to me. But then I like to build things, you know. So I went to apply for civil engineering school, and I was admitted, and it's a 5 years program, and the first 2 years are really hard because you got math and physics and chemistry and all these basic science, and who survived those 2 years, then it was pretty much guaranteed you will finish the school.
Now, did you have to go to the army at any point?
Yes, the way it was organized in Czech, it was compulsory 2 years, but if you were at a college, from the four years of college and 5th year of the college, every Monday we had we have to put a uniform, and we play soldiers, you know, every Monday. the terrible things, we had uniforms which regular army didn't have. I don't know. They were called kopřiváky, which is it's like a herb which really, if you touch it,
Nettle.
it's like poison ivy.
Yeah, nettle.
Yeah. And it was so harsh on the skin. So I'm not kidding. In the summer, we had like women's stockings underneath because it was just like, it's not, there's nothing kinky to it. It was just so bad, this fabric, you know. And the officers who taught us, you know, they were absolute idiots. I mean, we actually, we had like a unit of absolute stupidity. We had one name of the one officer because nobody was more stupid than he was. You know, they were just so simple guys, you know, it was unbelievable. And the funny thing, I don't know if you read Czech, and I read it before I went to army, and I thought this is vulgar, this is stupid. When I was in army, I realized this is genius. This book is absolutely genius. You know? So, and then after college, the last summer we went like 5 weeks, you know, doing some camp, military camp, something like that, and after that we have to go for 1 year instead of 2 years, like for 1 year, and we had like 2 golden stripes for they were, you know, the college, who finished the college. And we were so hated by regular soldiers because we went for 1 year, and so it was kind of, it was difficult, you know. We were hated by officers because they hated anybody with education, and soldiers hated us too because we went just for 1 year, you know. So it was, but I went and I had some health trouble, you know. And so I went to hospital in Prague, and they let me go after. I started in September, and I was home in end of December.
Which year was this?
Oh gosh, 1980, 86,
Oh, gosh,
85,
as late as that. Okay.
something like that. No, 76, yeah. 76, 75, something like that. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you, when I was in this prep school for college, in like second, I was like 17. And my dad, there was some trip with his youth organization to Russia. And it was almost for free, you know. So I said, hey, I'm going to Russia. And my teacher, my physical education teacher, who was also like main teacher for our class, and he was very simple guy, and he believed in this, you know, communist stuff, and he kind of knew, you know, what I'm thinking about this stuff, and he was absolutely shocked that I'm going to Russia. It was like he goes to Soviet Union. He couldn't believe that. It was like 2 weeks trip, and we traveled, and it was 1975, something like that. And we traveled in a train. The train, we were in the car, just us Czechs, and when we went to different car to eat, because we traveled by the train about 2 days, 3 days. It was long ride. We went to Sochi, you know, through the Kiev, and the Russians were forbidden to talk to us. We were forbidden to approach them and talk to them. When we go, you know, walk in the train, going to the train where they serve food, we had the watchers, you know, the one Russian guy in front, another in the back, kind of accompany us. Then we arrived and what was amazing, when we traveled through Ukraine, you can have like miles and miles rail tracks, and there were trees. You didn't see anything, just trees, you know. And every bridge, and it was like 30 years after war, every bridge and every tunnel was still guarded by armed soldiers. You know, every entrance to the bridge, there was on the guard, you know, soldiers. like in the war. Then we came to Sochi, and it was pretty good, like a compound for tourists, really nice looking, but it was only for foreigners. The Russians were forbidden to enter it and to have any contact with us. So it was interesting experience. Then we went to Moscow, and it was interesting. One guy, he was crossing the street, but he wasn't crossing the street where the white stripes are. And the cop stopped him and ordered him go back to and there was no traffic whatsoever. No traffic there. Another guy from our group started taking photographs, and he got the cop got so pissed he pulled the film from the camera, ruined the whole thing. Then we went to see Lenin in the mausoleum, which was bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre, because we were foreigners, we could go up front because there was a huge line of Russians waiting to see that, and we were told you are not gonna smile. You just go, look straight, no smile, no movement, just go. And we were like going like zombies, And he was actually a really small, kind of strange-looking guy. And so yeah, that was interesting. But I was surprised because we watched every October there was this military parade in Moscow, a huge military parade. And on TV, this Red Square looked gigantic. But if you stay there, it's actually not big at all. It's actually kind of uphill and then downhill. And if you see it, it's not so massive as you see it on TV. So I remember that really well. Like, this is not so big. And there's gum store right across the Kremlin. And we went there. It smelled terribly. It was like, oh my God. And they had nothing there. Just nothing. They had little cans of fish and some mustard. That was it. Stores were completely empty. And I know back in Czech, after we were invaded by the Russians, we had big military garrison in Olomouc. And I've seen these Russian women, they were short, fat, and they were dragging the stuff from stores, because for them to be in Czech, it was like for us to be in Germany or France. That was the difference between the standard of living. So.
To go back a bit, did you have any contact with any Russian soldiers in August 1968? Did you say anything to them?
No. I never get any close, and I was afraid, and my mom, she told me don't do anything stupid, so I didn't have anything with them.
Okay, so a couple of questions. One, you talked about the 70s before and said it was a real dark ages in terms of morals and in terms of just, hope and stuff. Can you go into that a bit more? It was really interesting what you were saying.
I don't know if you read, there's a really good book, Unbearable Lightness of Being from Kundera. He kind of described it. What was so depressing that Czech so quickly turned against the Czech, we had no backbone, the people, it was so, in 1968 in summer it was like, oh, everything is great, and suddenly the same people so quickly gave up, and that was my huge disappointment with Czech nation. And I don't know about other if they, other like communist countries, Hungary, Poland, Germany. Maybe Germany was even worse, probably. But there was something like the way it worked. If you want to proceed or have a better position at work, you have to be a member of Communist Party. But it wasn't like I'm gonna be member of Communist Party. Somebody has to recommend you. It's like I decided I will be member. They would never took me. Not that I had any desire to be there, but I know in my own family, my sister married the officer of Czech army. He was member of Communist Party, and when I left, for Austria, there was split in my family because my sister was blaming my mom that she knew about it, and now he has a trouble. Her husband has a trouble. He might be demoted or something. I don't know. But you know what? It wasn't my problem. So as I said, there were literally rewards. Like, for example, if you want to have kids in the kindergarten, you have to be active in some of these stupid, labor organization or something like that. If you just stay back and you are not active, you have to, you didn't get an apartment, you didn't get promoted. So at the beginning of like in the 40s and 50s, maybe the true believers were in the party. Over the years, only opportunists were in the party, and they were ruthless, So, and I think the people really, these opportunists, took advantage of it after, in '68, and they said, "This is my chance," And suddenly, this group of people with no morals were ruling the whole nation, and everybody else was like pulled back and didn't want to do anything with them. Just put blinders on, So yeah, there was. But in the 70s, the Havel, the future president, they started Charta 77, and I remember people were forced to sign. They disagree with them, and it was huge action. And even like artists and the actors, they had huge. They put them all in theater, and it was like show that we are in support of government. And there was another disappointment. There was one famous actor, Verich, who was there too, and he was in his 80s. And I was thinking, you don't need that. Why you are there? You have nothing to lose. And so I was kind of disappointed with that. And so
how did you personally reconcile, clearly you wanted what was best for your kids, you wanted them to go to kindergarten and eventually one day university. How does a parent try and provide them with what's best for them without kind of compromising oneself too much? What did you do?
Well, they were really young back then, because I left when they were 5 and 7. So there was not pressure going to college, going to the prep school, anything like that. And the reason I actually left was a mixture of personal reasons and like my personal reasons and the reasons which were surrounding me. What I am trying to say, if there was not personal situation, I got divorced, If this didn't happen, I would probably never leave, because what happened, I was not really happy in my marriage, and I met somebody and I fall terribly in love, and I burned not burn the bridges, but, I was just smitten with her. And so I got divorced, she did too. And suddenly there was this reality, we had no chance to live together because we couldn't get an apartment. So I was living with my parents. I saw my kids once at 2 weeks, making very little money and absolutely no future, And funny thing, her husband, actually that summer when she divorced him, and I was 33, I was 31, she was 21. He left for Canada. He had the relatives in Canada, and he managed to get through Yugoslavia too. And she said, what about if we leave too? So we start planning it, and you really had to planning. And so I said, yeah, why not? Because there was there was absolutely nothing in Czechoslovakia, which, you know, it was very depressing. Another reason was people were complaining all the time, but nobody did anything, you know. I said, you know what, just do something or just shut up, you know. Don't complain if you don't want to do anything. Because we had like elections, and I just saw a couple of days ago, like, the communist guy was saying proudly that 99% of 95 people voted for a communist party, you know. And it's true. It wasn't rigged because people were afraid. It wasn't like here you go behind somewhere to hide. You voted in public. So they knew perfectly well who did vote it or who did not. And you had no choice to. There was no other candidate than Communist Party. So what's the point? I remember I did go vote, but I don't remember details. I just was so, and I consider it a really brave act. I just didn't drop the ticket or something. I don't know. And after that, we were divorced, and it was just a really bad situation personally, and I felt so isolated from other people, you know, because I just couldn't talk to them. I started to be filled with such a rage, you know, against the not violent rage, but the whole system, everything, you know, being trapped in this life, you know, I don't want to live. So when she said, you know, what about if we leave? I said, yeah, why not? I didn't think about it. I said, yeah. And we start planning it. And we find some friends who worked in the traveler agency. And you could travel to Yugoslavia, but the trips were sold twice a year, like spring and winter. So we managed to tell them, and when they start selling these trips, the people were standing in the line overnight in front of travel agency to get these trips. But if you knew somebody in, you know, it was your ticket. Your name was there, and these poor people. But that's how it worked, you know. So they managed to put us, both of us, on a trip to Yugoslavia with one-day trip to Venice. But it took us like 2 years to organize everything, and she wanted to leave earlier, but I said I cannot do it. I have to save some money for kids before I leave, you know, sell some stuff, and you have to be really careful not to tell anybody that, you know, you want to leave. You cannot absolutely tell anybody, because I didn't tell my mom. My ex, she didn't tell her parents, you know. But the funny thing, we worked in the same organization, it was in the same company, and we were both divorced. Everybody knew we are dating, and everybody knew we are going to Yugoslavia, and it was like, you know, they will never come back. People were openly talking about it, like, and we were like, oh no, you know, I got 2 kids here, I cannot leave, and but sure, yeah, we were planning to stay there, and so it was in 1987, and back then it was Gorbachev already in power, and you can definitely feel there is something changing, but it still looked like it will be there forever. There might be some change, little openness, but just a little bit, you know. So in June 1987, we boarded bus going through Hungary, going through Serbia to Croatia, and I bought on the black market some like 100 Canadian dollars, and I made a bag, travel bag, and I did laminated the money and some documents I laminated in the bottom of this travel bag. Then I It's like, then I put some money. Took a canister with film. I rolled the film out and put the money in and back the roll film and put the film back in the camera. Because if they caught you in foreign money, and you might get in trouble. So we were going through Hungary. We got to the border with Hungary, and if you cross the border to Hungary, you were okay, because their next border were Hungary, Serbia, which was fine, you know. We get to the border, and we split some stuff between Zuzana, my ex, and me, so we can kind of say, oh, this is not mine, or some. I don't remember exactly details, but we kind of planned that. And we had a map of Italy, which kind of scared us. You know, they said if they find somebody with map, you know, you can get in trouble. So we get to the border, and they said, you go out, all luggage is out, and we will, you know, check what you have on you. And they picked me too. And I was sitting next to Susanna, and then for some reason, and you can tell, such an arrogant prick, you know, this custom clerk. And he said, no, but he didn't say I should go. And I was like, defiant, like, should I go too? And he said, well, if you want to. So I didn't go. But what happened, for some reason, there was some luggage who nobody claimed. So they let everybody get out of bus, every luggage out of bus, and everybody has to grab their own luggage, you know. And it took like an hour, and I heard stories. What they did to people, that they have to put all luggages out, and they have to run people for their luggages, and who was lost, they pick them for, you know. But we were okay. We went through the border, and we went to Serbia, and then we had 1-day trip from northern Croatia to Venice by ship. And suddenly there was another couple, and it was obvious they want to leave too. And we boarded ship to Venice, and we had like a big luggage for 1-day trip to Venice. And everybody was looking at us, and honestly, I was scared. I was really scared, because you don't know what you expect. You know, you are leaving everything behind you, and so I didn't enjoy this sailing across the sea too much. We get to Venice, and they said, you from Czech or Czechoslovakia, there's one gate, and everybody else goes the other gate, and they just, you know, they don't even open the passports like Dutch and Germans, you know, they just went through. And I felt again, you know, that's the reason I have to leave, because this was so humiliating, you know, it was so, I felt justification, I have to leave this, you know. But the Italians told me, you don't need, for 1-day trip, this is a huge luggage, you know, luggage, so put it back on the ship. The other thing, they left our passports at the ship, you know, as a. So I said okay, and I took the bag with money and laminated inside, and I went to the toilet, and I had a real pocket knife, and I was ripping this bag to get the money and the stuff outside. And I was like, oh, I was thinking everywhere is camera. It was like, I was so scared. But I got it out, and so we went to Venice, and we didn't know, and we said, we are asking for asylum. And they said, no, don't do it now, come back when you are coming back, you know, and then you can do it. So we were wandering across the Venice, and we went to St. Mark Plaza, and there were all these tourists having a great time, and we were kind of desperate. So we went back, but we didn't have a passport. So one Italian guy, he offered that he will go to the ship to pick up these passports. And some luggage, maybe some luggage. But he brought some luggage of some other person, you know, so it was a mess. It's like complicated. And after that, the Italians, they took us to police station. They did short interview with us, and they gave us tickets to Latina, which was a refugee camp close to Rome. And they gave us train tickets. So we boarded train in the evening, and was it in the evening? I think so. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. And we went to Latina. We got to Rome. Yeah, then we traveled to Latina. We get to Latina, and it was just horrible. It was just, I don't know if you heard stories about that camp. Was just awful. Basically was ruled by the Polish, and Italians were just hands off, and the Polish was, you have to bribe them to be families together, and it was awful. We went to a restroom, and it was like inch of water. Hopefully it was water. It was just bad. It was nasty. So we decided, and two other guys, they were from different trip, two brothers from Brno, two guys. We kind of, by accident, we met each other, and they were there too. No, actually, we met them in Rome, and we decided, okay, we are not staying here. We go back. We told Italians that we want to go back. And they said we are crazy. They gave us back passports, and we went back to Rome. And we stayed in Rome like 4 days because the tickets were kind of valid for 4 days. We stayed in Rome, and we didn't know what to do. So we went to like American embassy, but back then it was in 80s, and there was like a terrorist, these red brigades in Italy, and if you went in a Roman bank, it was like the thick glass, bulletproof, one door, another door, so, and there were Marines standing in the front of American embassy in Rome. So we got scared, and we went back to a rail station in Rome. And these two guys, they called back to the Brno, and somebody told them from the family, they know a Czech priest in Radio Vatican. And so they got his name, and we decided to go there. I think we called him, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly. But we got on the bus, and we went to Radio Vatican to meet the guy.
This is tape 2, Michael Tolwinkel, Chicago, Illinois, and it's the 28th of February 2012. And so you made contact with this priest from Radio Vatican. Yeah,
so we went to Vatican, and we met the guy, and there was another Czech priest. He was younger. The guy, he was in late 60s, I would say. The other guy was really young. And he said, well, how long, he asked, he said, oh yeah, I know Latina. And he said, but this is great. I was in Athens waiting 18 months, and that was bad, But the guy, the priest, it was Catholic priest, and he gave us, I remember, the shot of cognac and some chocolate. And he told us, and maybe I shouldn't say that here because it's kind of, he told us, you have to go to Austria if you don't want to stay, and never tell that you were in Italy, because you have to ask in the first free country. If you tell them in Austria you are coming from Italy, they have to return you back to Italy. So, and he said, sometimes even God, close eyes that you have to lie, And so he was really great, a great guy. So we went back and it was after like 3 days staying in the Rome train station, and we had really little to eat, and so when we decided we are going to Austria, we went and bought some pizza, from the rest of the money we had, and so we boarded train to going through the northern Italy to Traiskirchen, where is the big refugee camp in Austria. But before I heard really bad things about Traiskirchen, that there was Austrians kind of were hands off, and what happened? There was one guy, Czech guy. He was drunk and he terrorized basically people. And once he came back drunk, and the people got so pissed they threw him out of the window, like from third or fourth story. There was a huge scandal in Austria from that, and after that, Austrians really clamped down and really controlled that. But I didn't know that, you know. But I read the story back in Czech, you know, like, you know, you immigrants, you think you want to, you know, leave the country, look how bad it is. And so I was a little bit fearful, but we get on a train and we travel to Udine, which is close to border. We get off the train because we didn't have a visa to Austria, and we cross the border around the train, you know, through the forest. And again, you know, we bought a map and we thought like we are watched, like, you know, but nobody cares about us. But we were like really scared. But we crossed the border and then get next station, get back on the train, and we traveled to Traiskirchen, where to Vienna, from Vienna to Traiskirchen, and then we asked for asylum again in Austria. But in Traiskirchen, the Austrians, they had it really organized. You know, they keep eye on everything and everybody, and food was pretty good. And we stayed there. They did some paperwork, and I think after 2 days, they put us on the bus, and we traveled to Klamgruberhof, which is about 60 kilometers west of Vienna in Schwarzwald, in really picturesque, you know, the not mountain, but the Black Forest in Austria. It's really pretty there. And we lived we arrived at a little pension, a little hotel, you know. It was, and it was a group of like Polish, there were some Hungarians, Czechs, Slovaks, and that's about it. It was like 50 people came. And everything was financed by Austrian government. You know, they have this refugee program. So we were getting food every day, you know, 3 times a day, and they gave us some clothes, and but it was basic stuff, you know. We have a really nice room, and what was interesting, and then we started looking for work, you know. It was illegal for us to work, but you know, I didn't know a word of German. I knew a little bit English, but I learned one sentence in German, "Do you need any help?" And we did some traveling to Vienna by hitchhiking. So every time somebody pick up us, we, you know, talk to them, and we were, you know, we find work. We did everything, anything, you know. We're digging ditches and doing some masonry work, and Zuzana, she was doing some house cleaning, and so then I find one guy, he was doctor from Vienna, and he needed to fix the house, not too far, but we didn't have any transportation. So I find one guy, he was a young guy, Hungarian guy, he had a car, he bought a car. So I said him, and I didn't speak any Hungarian, he didn't speak any Czech, but we managed to kind of communicate. So we were working together, and Slovaks didn't like us because I was working with Hungarian. But this pension was a great experience for me. I knew exactly how communism came to the existence, because we arrived with nothing, you know, like 50, 60 people, just absolutely nothing. And they were really quickly 2 groups: the people who actively were looking for, you know, improve their situation in life, and others who were just sitting on their butts, complaining about food, like Austrians are stupid, and doing absolutely nothing, you know. We were getting like pocket money every month. The first thing what they did, they went to the store and bought a beer, and 2 days later they had nothing, just complaining. And so really quickly, two groups separated from like have-nots and those who really try to do something about their lives. And they were like, "Oh, buy the bottle." I say, "No, go and find a job or do something." But so we stayed in Austria 15 months, and I got pretty good memories. It was really nice there, the area. We had extra money. We went to concert in Vienna. I saw Bryan Adams. I saw Pink Floyd in Vienna. We can buy clothes. I was sending money every month to my kids. I was sending my daughter till today. I was sending her some jeans, and she said, "It was great. Nobody had jeans like this in the whole school." So because that was one of my fear that I wouldn't be not able to send any money to kids, but I was. I had no problem doing that, and the reason I didn't say that, why I said, okay, I'm gonna leave. I knew I cannot improve my situation or situations for my kids. It was just impossible. And I said, if it works out, my children, they can come, visit me and maybe stay in the U.S. Because there was absolutely you could not say it will change in 2 years. Because it will be another 50 years there. So we were in Austria 15 months. We even saved, like $2,000 going, in these 15 months. And we could buy food in Austria, extra stuff. We were pretty frugal, but still,
So you got there to Austria, first of all, in summer 1987, am I
Yeah,
right?
June 87.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once, you had been in Traiskirchen and then you were sent out to this pension,
Yeah.
was it already clear by then you were going to America, or how did
No,
America come about?
no. If you look in Czech, like in communist country, there's no information there's no book, for stupid how to emigrate, You just heard stories, but that was it. So we, in Austria, in Traiskirchen, there were organizations who sponsors, and they were looking, they were helping the refugees to settle in other countries. One of these were some Christian organization. I forgot the name of them, and they paid for our tickets, the airline tickets, and they helped with paperwork and everything. And they filed for interview on the Canadian embassy, U.S. embassy, and we were kind of thinking about Australia, but the first interview we had at American embassy, and we had it really soon, like 2 months after we get to Austria. And we were the lady who was doing interview with us. She was pretty tough, but we were told if they send us after interview to exam the health exam. What's the word?
Like the medical?
Yeah, in the medical exam,
Examination,
you
I
are
see.
admitted. Unless there are some medical. So couple of weeks later, we went to the medical examination, and we knew we are admitted. So, and there's another thing about, there was one Australian lady, a couple kilometers from the pension. She was teaching English, for free for the refugees, because there was a bunch of these motels, hotels in the neighborhood. And I have to mention it, the Austrians, I cannot say a bad word about Austrians. They were so nice to us. And so she was teaching English, and it was shocking that from these 60 people, only like 5 of us went, every week, twice a week, we went to English classes. And what I was talking about. So
The medical exam and
Yeah.
to America.
and so we knew we are admitted, and we got paperwork that we go to Texas. I believe it was Austin. So I tried to find some literature about Austin, and suddenly, like a couple of weeks later, it changed. We go to North Carolina, to Raleigh, and maybe a year before, back in Czech, I saw a movie with John Malkovich. He's the blind guy, and it's there's American actress. She's really petite. It was. She is at the farm somewhere in the south, cotton farm. Her husband died. John Malkovich is there living, helping. Not her, but he's blind, and he's kind of keeping for himself. And then tornado came. It's a great movie. There's another actor. He was helping hand. Famous black actor. It's a really great movie. So I saw myself in North Carolina. I started reading about North Carolina. Okay, major cotton and tobacco producer, and I saw myself picking cotton on the fields. But then we traveled. We were hitchhiking in Austria, and we talked to Austrians, and we met actually a couple of people who were in North Carolina. I said, "Oh, it's beautiful. North Carolina is beautiful." So it was like, "Wow, yeah, it's great." So we stayed there 15 months. After 15 months, we got that we are flying we go to US. Because after that we canceled Canadian interview, and so.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Just quickly.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, did you have, before you even went to the American embassy, an idea of America in your head that had been formed by growing up in Czechoslovakia? And if so, kind of what was your idea of the States?
It was kind of conflicting. The one was the land of opportunity, big cars. We saw American movies, and we just for us America was just something amazing, that it's so different from we live, the freedom, and everything is big cars, and but on the other hand, we saw like crime stories, so, and that's I'm gonna get to it. So we flew from Vienna to New York City, and on the board of the airplane we saw a movie with Cher where she is young prosecutor in New York City, and she's standing on red lights in the New York City, and the guy came with a brick and broke her windshield and robbed her, in the city. And then before we heard stories that you got to U.S. and nobody waits for you, and so we were pretty scared, going to U.S. because we really didn't know what to expect. And so we flew to New York City, and there was a man, he was Czech. What happened back in Austria, I asked some clerk or guy who was providing paperwork. I asked him some questions, and he decided, he said, okay, and he gave me the whole, the paperwork for a whole group, of the people. And we traveled back with Pan Am. It was still existing. And so we landed in New York, and this guy was in the airport. I gave him this paperwork for our whole group. And he was like 70, if not more. And he was Czech. I asked him in Czech if he's living in New York, and he said, yeah. And I asked him if he likes it, and he looked at me so like, why, he didn't understand like why I shouldn't like it, and suddenly I felt so relief, It wasn't like, oh yeah, but there are some problems. It was like, yeah, why not, And at that moment, it was a huge relief. And we changed airplane. We flew to Raleigh. I think we landed in Newport somewhere in Virginia or somewhere. And we flew over Virginia, and it was in September. and you could see these swimming pools, these houses with a swimming pool with this blue water, and like, wow, it was amazing. And then we landed in Raleigh, in North Carolina, with another airline, Piedmont Airline, doesn't exist anymore either. And there was a huge transparent, "Vítáme vás in America," in Czech. And that was fantastic, There were some Czech people waiting for us. But our sponsors were a group of people from United Methodist Church in North Carolina, in Raleigh. And there was a group of just fantastic people. Me and Zuzana, my ex, we are not religious people, I wouldn't say we are atheist. I believe in something spiritual, but I'm not necessarily Catholic, Baptist. But these people, they saw one paper with a really bad photo of us, and they decided we want to sponsor to those people. And they, when we get to the airport, the one of them, he took us to his home. We stayed there for 2 days. They find the apartment for us, and they pay for apartment for like 6 months. They paid for our insurance. They gave us car. They provided furniture for a whole apartment, everything. We moved. I mean, the furniture every piece was different, but who cares, And when we told to our, friends and relatives in Czech, they couldn't believe it. They say, what do they want for it? And I said, nothing, They just, they want to help. And so we went to the church a couple of times with them. But there was absolutely no pressure from them to go to the church. After a couple of months, we didn't understand back then. When we came, when I was in Austria, I bought a magazine, like Time magazine, and it was like 2 pages, and I was translating it with a dictionary, and every word got like 5 meanings, and these sentences, I couldn't. But I managed to translate the whole article, and we were really, really diligent, learning English. But it's different if you can read. We just didn't understand, People start talking, and you just don't understand. So, we stopped going to the church, I think, after 6 months. But there was absolutely no pressure.
Watch out! It's just I can hear it when you scratch.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so look, I have a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is you came to America in September 1989, right? Oh.
88.
88. Okay.
88. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, that was one thing I wanted to
Yeah,
ask.
September 88. Yeah.
All right.
Because, 87 we could get to Austria, and after 15 months,
Okay.
88.
Got it. All right. So were you able to, while you were in Austria and while you were in America in those early days, communicate openly, freely with your family, or not so much?
From Austria, there's interesting. When we were in Austria, the Czech government allowed parents to come visit us and try to persuade us going back. Obviously, everybody loved these trips because they have no intention to tell us to go back. And so we bought, clothes for my kids and for them, and my ex, Zuzana's father, even say, "Don't be crazy, never come back," So they didn't try, and so when we get to U.S., it was more complicated because back then, the phone was expensive. Calling, it was pretty expensive. There was no there was internet, but there was no Skype. They didn't have computers there. So if we called, maybe, I don't know, once a month, that was about it. We wrote letters, but I think we talk like once a month over the phone a little bit.
Were you following events back in Czechoslovakia, or did you kind of like sever yourself from that?
I do, but honestly, I don't know too many details, because these political parties, I don't know who these people are. So I kind of do, but only on the surface. I know who his order is. I know that the social democratic parties are basically communists, but I don't know too many details. My understanding, because from my two kids, the son, he is living in Czech. My daughter, she's living here in the United States. And it's funny situation because she never want to come here, and she's here now, living here, you know. But
I guess my big question was with the Velvet Revolution that happened. Did this change everything for you? You were really only out of the country a couple of years. Did you think about going back?
I know people, they went right away back, but I never had any intention to go back, because I was so impressed with Americans, with, you know, their hospitality and how they accepted us. That's the major difference I feel. And I got big arguments with, you know, Czech people about, like, be proud that you are Czech. And I said, you know what, this is my homeland. I was treated so well here. And when I go back, I just don't feel it, you know. So I never had any desire to go back.
Sorry to interrupt. I was going to ask, when you settled in Raleigh, did you sort of seek out other Czechs, and did you spend time in a Czech community there? Was there even a Czech community?
See, it was before, it was still the close border in Czech. So there was a group of Czechs which were about maybe 20 years older than us. It was the wave of 1968, they left. And they were mostly college educated around the universities in Raleigh. So we kept contact with them. And there was a couple in Raleigh. They helped us tremendously. They were just fantastic people. He already died. She is living in Austin, Texas. She got grandkids there, and we were at their house all the time. And they kind of help us too. You know, they told us, like, the women, they shave. You know, you have to shave your legs and stuff like that. You know, like. So that was great comfort, you know, to have them. But we kept contact with these American sponsors, you know, all the time. And we had a goal to go to university, you know, and so we really hard. And I got a job through the sponsors as a draftsman in the engineering company after, like, I started in January the following year, and Susanna started about the same time as a draft person in another company. And it was difficult because, you know, I was doing drafting and my English wasn't so great, and I was like, they must, you know, fire me because I don't know what I'm doing, you know. But the way I got the job is I started playing soccer, you know, and I met the guy who was working for this engineering company, and he was playing soccer too. So he said, "Oh, we are looking for draftsmen," and he talked to me, and they got me a job. And if you are under pressure, you learn really quickly. So
where was your first job? What was your first employer?
It was the Wooten Company in Raleigh. I worked there 5 years, and we took exam, both English of a second language, after about a year. And so I started working, I worked full time, and I was taking classes at this university, the civil engineering program. And Susanna, she worked full time, and then she went to, she studied at North Carolina State University textile. You know, she got a degree in textile. And she finished school like in 3 years with straight A, which is just amazing. And it's, you know, difficult to live with women like that.
So how can you, or how would you compare your experience of education, higher education in the United States and in Czechoslovakia?
It's different. In Czech, we had I think it was more, and it's generally more European system. We didn't have to even go to přednášky, how they call it?
Exams?
Not exams. When
Oh,
they
lectures, sorry.
lectures.
Yeah.
Here it's more strict. It's you have to go to lectures. You know, at least it's my experience. You have to sign out. You have like these exams during the lectures, like 4 times during a semester, and then there's final exam. We had a final exam, and even if you screw up during a year, you can make up everything on this final exam. You know, so I kind of like this European system more than American system. I think American system is more like high school. You know, it's more. So, but I took some graduated classes, and there were almost no Americans. It was in civil engineering, like concrete design, steel design. The most of students were at the graduate school. They were Chinese, Indians, very few Americans, because I think there are no money in the to have master degree in civil engineering. Although I think it's changing now. It might be changing. So yeah, we both finished college, and we moved. She got a job close to Wilmington in North Carolina, close to coast. So we moved there. We bought our first house and fixer upper, and we spent a lot of time fixing the house. And yeah, it was really nice. But I don't know what happened. So we lived there 3 years. So totally, we lived 10 years in North Carolina. And
Okay, so what degree did you graduate with? Was this a bachelor's or a master's in?
it's actually they call it professional degree in civil engineering, which is designed for people, let's say, like people who got bachelor in math or some science and decided to add some classes in civil engineering. So that my degree is, but it's a different, and that's different system against European. Although they have it now in Europe too. Here is EIT, which is engineer in training. If you finish school, you are bachelor, you have to take exam EIT. And then you work 5 years in engineering company under supervision, somebody who is professional engineer. Then you take another exam and you are professional engineer. And I never took this EIT exam, which kind of closed door for me for another, but that's life, so.
But it sounds like you were quite seamlessly able to kind of almost continue in your career despite crossing continents. I mean, would you say that?
At the beginning, yeah, but then when we moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, there was very little opportunities in my field. So I kind of struggled there, and Zuzana, she got a job with a big textile company, and they did fabrics for car upholstery, car seats. And the plant was nearby. They were making these fabrics there, and they came with some new technology. Instead of woven fabrics, they were printed. And they bought it from Japanese, so she was like twice she went to Japan for business trip, and but for me it was difficult to find something in North Carolina, and I think it was a big mistake we moved out of Raleigh. We should stay there, and but.
Okay, so going back to Raleigh just quickly though, with your first job that you were in for 5 years, how would you compare the American corporate environment with the Czechoslovak business environment you had worked in up until that time? Were there clear differences, or was it surprisingly similar?
Well, it was actually a really small company. It could be like 30 people working, but so it wasn't like big corporation like IBM. Anything like that, and it was wonderful. I was treated so well. I just couldn't complain. It was great company. But about this corporate company, I know Zuzana. She worked when we moved to Michigan. She worked for Lear, which is big. It's a second tier company for Big Three for GM, and she absolutely hated it. She absolutely hated this big corporation because it was so much backstabbing and left hand didn't know what right hand is doing, and she didn't like it at all.
So, can you tell me a bit about moving to Michigan? Why did you do this and when?
Well, because I couldn't find any reasonable job in Wilmington, we decided, and then Olivia, our daughter, was born. So she had an offer to move to Detroit because there is big three, automotive industry, and I said, okay, let's move there. So we moved there to Detroit, and I remember we loaded everything. We sold the house, and well, no, we sold the house later on. I have to go back to North Carolina, and we actually fixed this house so beautifully, and then we left everything there. So we moved to Detroit. We had an apartment there, and when we moved to Detroit, she asked for divorce, So, and suddenly I was in Detroit. I didn't know anybody. That was only time I was actually thinking about going back because I felt so, alone there. But then Olivia was born. She was 6 months, so I said, no, I cannot do it. So that's because of her job. We moved to Michigan, and I got pretty good job in engineering company for about 2 years. But then things start going really bad in Michigan because, the situation which is economy is bad here. It's last 15 years in Michigan. It's really bad because automotive industry, they screw up big time. They couldn't compete. I think that I remember the first car I was driving, American car, and I said, I would never buy American car. It was horrible. But they are so much better now. They really are. So after 2 years, I lost my job, and I really struggled there for like a long time. And and I had the dilemma what I should do, because Olivia was living in Michigan. I didn't want to move. I want to live nearby. But on the other hand, if I move out of Michigan, I would be making much more money. But you know what? I feel really good that I stayed in Michigan because I was there when she was growing up, and so I think it was a good decision. Although financially, I got a huge beating. I bought small house, I fixed it again, I sold it again. You don't make any money on fixer-uppers, so it's.
So what sorts of jobs did you do after those 2 years as an engineer?
Oh my God, I did anything. I was working in manufacturing and temporary worker, feeding parts in the machines and mostly that. Mostly stuff like that, making like $8 an hour and.
Were you unionized and were American
No.
unions? Okay.
No. It's almost impossible to get, in unions. You have to know somebody there, and they are reducing stuff, so they, it's. And I even didn't try. I knew it's not what I want to do. I want to go back to engineering job, but I stick around in Michigan. And Susanna, she got laid off from her job. But she already had lined up job in Colorado, so she moved with Olivia to Colorado, and I immediately. And back then, already my daughter, Teresa, she came visit me when she was like 20, with her boyfriend, and she never left. She left for a couple of months, and she came back, and so she lived with me for a little bit. And then she moved to Chicago because there's much bigger Czech community here. She was like 21 and she moved here to Chicago. So when Olivia moved to Colorado with her mom, I immediately put house on the market and I left for Chicago and started working here in engineering company. So I find a job and so.
So when did you come to Chicago?
oh my gosh, it's like 7 years. I'm here 7 years
So like
in Chicago.
2005-ish?
Something like this, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so I suppose perhaps in Michigan, but certainly in Chicago, you've clearly met a lot of the Czechs who came around about the same time as you, or a couple of years after you. Would you say their experiences of like immigrating and yours are completely different just because of like that Velvet Revolution happening? Are there big differences between?
You know, I actually didn't meet too many people from the same time. Funny thing, at the one party, I actually met one guy who was in this pension in Austria, and I didn't recognize him, and I was like, wow. And he said, are you Michael, in Czech language? I said, yeah. And because it's like 22 years, so we talk, and but I don't know too many people. More I know through my daughter, people who came after revolution. And to be honest, I don't seek too much. I'm not like going to Czech pop, and I just don't do that because I don't have to associate somebody with necessarily just because he's Czech. So.
Are there any Czech things here in Chicago that you are active in? Do you have any sort of like favorite Czech causes here in Chicago, or not even?
I kind of like the stuff which goes on consulate, like this this document about Miloš Forman, or there was maybe half year ago. There was like panel discussion about Czech movies, and I enjoyed it a lot. I wish we have something like that more often. But other than that, not really.
So, a couple of questions. First of all, can you tell me a bit about becoming an American citizen? When you did, and how easy and or complicated that process was?
Well, we got this what was it was like a white paper. We got it in our passport, and we were admitted here as refugees, which means we had automatically allowed to work, to get a social security, everything, and we waited for green card like a year, and then you have to wait 5 years after you get a green card to apply for citizenship. And we applied for citizenship. Took another year to be invited for like oath, an interview, exam. And we had the oath in the Fort Bragg in North Carolina, where it's 82nd Airborne Division. It was pretty interesting, actually. It was a lot of fun, They had like a little bit show, and it was great, So we got our citizenship there in 1995. 1995, yeah. And I really like North Carolina. I really like Southerners. And I know at my work now, like, people from Chicago, all these Southerners, they are like, and I'm saying like, like they are racist and stuff like that. I say, if you want to see racism, go to Southside Chicago, go to Detroit. Midwest is much more racist than South. And so we got this like, it's nothing serious. It's like, it's and. What I like about North Carolina, these people were so laid back, so much more friendly, than I feel. And especially in Detroit, I just didn't like it there. And I'm not talking about Detroit, I'm talking about suburbs, because the mentality was, I don't know, just, rude and in your face, and so I just love Southerners. I cannot help it.
All right. I suppose. What about Chicago? You've now been here for 7 years. Is this a city you would continue to live in more?
I want to. I really want to move to Colorado, because my daughter lives there, but that's not the only reason. The climate, it's. I don't like these long Chicago winters. I don't mind cold, but the gray winters, it really. And older I am, more I want to be spend time outdoor. I love, riding bicycle and being outdoor, and it's difficult to do it here, especially living, if you have to live either in suburbs somewhere. That's one thing. Another thing, Illinois is flat, and I really like mountains. So definitely Colorado is in my destiny. I hope so. I love downtown. Downtown Chicago is beautiful, especially in summer. Beach and everything. It's gorgeous. But older I am, I'm more tired of this traffic and So yeah, my daughter, she lives in close to Boulder, and it's a great combination in a small town and there's big city nearby. So she got mountains. There's a really small, really nice school she goes to. She's in high school now, and so something like that I really want to live in.
When was the first time you went back to the Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia? It could have still been
Well,
after leaving.
Actually in 1989, in the winter. 90. When did the government change? 89.
In November.
So we went back 1991, in December 19, and then 91. Yeah, we went back, and then we were then in December, so the weather was not great, but yeah, it was great to come back and visit, and so.
Had it changed a lot because of the political change? Or
No, not really. It was short time. It didn't change too much, but yeah, it was great going to the borders. With no. It was different feeling going back, but it changed over these 20 years, big time. They fixed everything, and yeah.
Did you raise your daughter Olivia to speak Czech and to be very aware of her Czech background?
That's the funny point, because we went to this movie and Milos Forman, he's in the car with his two kids, and he's saying, I am in Czech and I cannot talk to my kids in Czech, and I'm in exactly the same situation, because when Olivia was 6 months old, we divorced. And it was easier when she went to kindergarten and she was speaking. And we were not, in Michigan, in that part, there was no Czech community, So she was growing up speaking English. And for us, it was easier to just respond in English. So Olivia, she understands, but she doesn't speak. And when she speaks the funny Czech, really funny Czech. And no, we didn't. And yeah, everybody's like, how could you do that? Why you didn't teach her Czech? And it's true, but it happened, yeah.
Did you raise her aware of any Czech traditions? Like, for example, did you celebrate Christmas on the 24th? Or?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
On 24, yeah. And she actually likes it because she's like getting gifts on 24 and then on 25th, And she was, not last summer, but previous summer, she went to Czech for like a camp with the kids of same age. And she absolutely loved it. She loved it. They were able to talk to each other, and maybe some kids were talking some English, and she was talking a little bit Czech, and she just loved it, And I think the part of it, he was like exotic, American girl in Czech, and so she felt maybe special or something.
So she seems to be interested in both her parents' Czech background. Then she asks you questions about this.
I think the older she will be, she will be more, and she actually gave me a couple of questions, the same like we are talking now. Why you left, and so We talk about it a little bit, but I think she needs to be a little bit older to to know what's going on. I think she should know, what her parents came through, and but now she's 14. She's typical American teenager.
Okay, I suppose, does your relationship to your own Czechness change as you get older? Does it get does it grow, like, I suppose, are you less attached as you spend like more time in the States, or what have you found?
Honestly, I don't have any. I really don't want. I would love to go to Europe, because I didn't have chance to. I was in Paris, and that's about it. But I don't have to go. Some people want to go every year back to Czech. I don't. I want to see my son. My grandkids there. But other than that, there's so many beautiful places here I want to see. So no, not really, not really.
So you don't feel a great big connection to the place that you were born? It's not.
Not really. No. Maybe it sounds harsh. I don't know, but there's no nostalgia. And honestly, I can imagine to, when I retire, live maybe 6 months, because it's cheaper living there. Live over summer, live in Czech, and go to Austria and neighboring countries, and come back here in winter. But I don't have any this homesick, anything like that.
Did you ever have something that sometimes people refer to as the immigrant dream? And I'm not meaning like with a home and stuff. I mean like when you go to sleep at night. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I had it all the time. Everybody got it. When we were in a refugee camp, I don't know how it happens, but I had it all the time. You are back in Czech, and suddenly you cannot go back because for some reason you are trapped in the Czech. And we just talked about it recently with I don't know who it was, because I almost forgot about it. These immigrant dreams, and I everybody got it. And there's another funny story, which is not about immigrant dream, but when we were in Austria, they were shooting movie in Vienna, James Bond movie, one which starts in Bratislava, and they are escaping from Bratislava across the mountain to Austria. There are no mountains between Slovakia and Austria. It's absolutely flat, but it's James Bond. But when they were shooting this movie, they put like transparent in the red fabric with Soviet Union forever, and somebody wrote in newspaper. I woke up one morning and I saw this transparent, and I was thinking Russians invaded Austria. So, but yeah, for some reason I actually had this immigrant dream like a couple months ago. It was bizarre. I don't know why, but yeah, somebody should study that. Why it's definitely had those.
Okay, I suppose I really only have a couple of last questions.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose, in what ways have you maybe seen this country change over the last 20 years that you've been here? Do you have any things that you would sort of say about where America was then and is now, in your view?
I think we are getting closer the way that Europe is, and I don't like it at all. What I like about Americans was the self-reliance, kind of this go get it, the ambition, and I think the American or U.S. is one of the only Western countries you can come here with just nothing, and you can make it big time. It's not like this in Europe. There is glass ceiling everywhere in Europe, and there are so many restrictions, so many permits you have to do anything, and I don't like what's going on right now. There's the 50% of Americans don't pay any tax, and that's definitely not good. And but I think we'll be. I think it's like a pendulum, goes back and forth. So I hope people will realize that we cannot, borrow from future generations, and so.
Okay, I think I've asked all my questions. Is there anything that happened in your life? I mean, I'm sure there's lots, but anything that like really kind of belongs on here that I haven't asked you about? Any other episodes that were really important?
I don't think so, but what I actually want to say, it's not about that you can own bigger car here than in Europe, bigger house than in Europe. My personal experience is the way the people are. They are so hospitable, Americans, and I think that's the biggest difference between Europe. And I feel here much more home than. And it's funny, when we Czechs get together and some of them visit back in Czech, we share the same stories. Like we got in argument with the rude people in the store, and we're laughing, But it's big. That's the major difference, You don't have to own here like huge house, but how people treat you. I think that's the biggest difference,
Okay, well, thank you very much.